Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing the COOSPO X1 mini electric bike tire inflator. COOSPO's new X1 inflator is an updated and upgraded bike inflator that builds on the COOSPO AP-B1 pump design. The X1 has a more traditional rectangular profile with a simplified user interface that addresses some of the shortcomings of the AP-B1. Packaging wise, really simple. You just have the orange and white branding that corresponds to the COOSPO brand, and then you can see a glossy representation of the pump on the front, and then the specs on the rear. I'll go ahead and open this up, and we'll go over the full specs. So retail price on this is $87.89, and it's actually on sale right now for only $54.89. So a very affordable option compared to other brands. You have a 120 PSI maximum with a large LED screen that shows battery status. And then you also have a 500 milliamp internal battery, which is really competitive with the other pumps on the market. You have USB Type-C charging, and this one also features a little transparent window that shows you the pump in action, which is kind of a cool feature. As far as what comes with it, you can see you have some basic packaging. You have the pump itself, so you can see pretty compact. The little plastic cover, that's always fun to remove. You have the instruction manual. And then all the adapters, so you can see we have an extension hose that'll thread on, and then an additional hose adapter for the Presta that you can attach to the hose or directly to the pump. So this one's Schrader. And then you have the ball needle attachment and a USB Type-C charging cable. Now let's take a look at the weight of the pump. So the X1 by itself comes in at 126 grams. If you're going to use it with the Presta, you need the little adapter, which is only 3. And if you're going to use it with the Schrader, you're going to need the extension hose. So that is 12 grams. Visually, the COOSPO X1 has a traditional rectangular profile with rounded corners and a very compact overall design. It actually has a plastic body, which helps dissipate some of the heat. And you can see it has very simple branding, just COOSPO on one side, and then perforations above the motor, which actually has a transparent panel. So interesting feature here, you can see the whole front piece is transparent. Actually lets you see the motor when it's rotating. And additional ventilation on the top, which again, helps this whole thing stay a lot cooler than your traditional metal one. As far as the dimensions, it's 2.8 by 2 by 1.2 inches. So you can see it fits in your palm of your hands, which is 72 by 53 by 30 millimeters, which makes it really easy to carry in your jersey pocket or your saddle bag. And again, what differentiates this from other pumps is that little transparent window. So if I were to turn this on, you can actually see the motor rotate, which is an interesting feature and something we've seen with the Magicshine Airro, which has a similar large opening here. So it's probably a feature we're going to see with more pumps on the market. The pump also has a front mounted nozzle, so you can see threaded on front nozzle that protrudes slightly. It's placed above the motor. On the back side, you have the pretty good sized LCD screen, which shows the current pressure, battery status, and then the units next to it with the 3 buttons below it. USB Type-C charging port on the bottom, which lets you charge the 500 milliamp battery, which gives you pretty good runtime. So you can inflate multiple tires depending on their size. And then again, plastic construction helps it stay nice and cool. As far as the nozzle design, you can see you have a threaded on front protrusion. This is actually a Presta setup right out of the box. So you can install this directly onto a valve, and you can see again threaded front. If you want to use a Schrader valve, you actually have to use the hose, which is a little bit unusual. They don't have a separate piece, and you can see it just threads right on. The hose is also what they recommend if you're using a TPU valve, as it avoids it from overheating and possibly melting, as this can get really hot. With the extension valve, you can actually see gives you a little bit more flexibility, so you can move this around and get in between spokes. So this would be Schrader. Then you can also use this with Presta by threading on an attachment. So unlike some other brands which combine this into a little flippable piece, this actually has a separate piece which is easy to lose, so you want to make sure you keep track of it. And then you can see this also is threaded, so it makes it easy to thread directly onto your valve and ensure it doesn't leak. You also have the ball attachment, which has a similar threaded on design, which you can thread directly onto the extension or directly onto the valve itself. So pretty simple setup overall. It is a little unusual, they don't have a separate Schrader attachment directly on here. And it's not a reversible design, so you definitely have to carry that with you. As far as the user interface, pretty simple. 3-button design, pretty nicely sized, and they are textured as well. Holding down the center one is the power button. That'll turn the screen on, and you can see a nice monochromatic screen. You have a plus and minus button, which adjusts the pressure. I can hold it down to do a rapid adjustment. Quick, fast presses, or single presses to adjust it to exactly what I want. It also has mode memory, so you can see while I'm adjusting it, it'll flash for a while. And this is while I'm in the adjustment mode. Once I let go, you can see it goes back to 0, which is the current pressure. And then if I turn this off and then turn it back on, you have mode memory, so it remembers where you were. So same 62. You have a 4-bar power battery setup here, so you can actually see the current battery status. And what's a little bit weird about this one, it's PSI only. So normally you would hold or double tap a button to go from PSI to a different unit, but this one's PSI only. No flashlights like some other models, or no other features. So really simple and easy to use. Sound-wise, it's a little bit loud, just like most of them, but not too annoying, and you get the motor spinning. But pretty easy to use otherwise, and similar sound and audible range as most pumps. Now let's take a look at the pump in action. It's very easy to use. You have a thread-on design. Here we're using the Presta extension on top of the nozzle itself, but you can thread it directly on. But with the little extension, you can actually get a little bit more clearance if you need it, or use the extension hose to get even more clearance. You can see it inflates pretty quickly. You get the target pressure, the live pressure displayed on the big LED, nice and easy to see, with a simple 3-button interface. Speed-wise, it's on par with the other pumps we've used, not the fastest, not the slowest. Automatically stops once you hit the pressure, and the sound is again on par with everything else, so not too unusually loud or not too quiet. So it's a really competitive pump that's quite affordable. You can see the battery pressure updates, and with every use it goes down a bit, and we got about 4 inflations with the 700/28 tire we have here, from 0 to 65 PSI. Here's a little speed comparison. You can see the Trek is the slowest, while the CYCPLUS beats everybody out by about 10 or 15 seconds. But for these, you can see it takes about a minute or 50 seconds for the CYCPLUS to get from 0 to 65 PSI. So a really nice competitive pump. It's nice they've simplified the design, made it easier to use, and it's very affordable, so a quarter the price of the Trek, and even half the price of CYCPLUS, especially if you buy it on sale. We also like the little simplifications, no more flashlight. The only weird things about this pump is that the nozzle extension does require the extension for the Schrader. It would have been nice if it was something more incorporated. And you only get PSI, which is not a problem if you're in the US, but if you're in another country, you might not want to see PSI. But you can see here, it edges out the Trek, and still nice and competitive. Now let's compare the COOSPO with some other pumps on the market. We actually have the AP-B1 here, and you can see a very different form factor. This one had a square rectangular shape, but then a big rounded bottom piece, which was a little bit unusual because the logo is upright, so you couldn't actually store this upright. It would just fall over, so you had to store it upside down. But you can see with this one, screen's on the side rather than the back. It's a little bit bigger than the B1, so the B1's a little bit smaller, more traditional shape. And you have the exposed motor versus the hidden one behind the vent. What I really didn't like about the B1 is you can see more bulky attachments, so it sticks out more. And then the user interface, if I double tap the plus button, if I want to do a quick adjustment to the pressure, it would turn on the flashlight. So it was a little bit annoying. You couldn't do a fast adjustment. You have to just keep pressing it slowly or hold it down. And with this one, they had a current pressure and target pressure as separate colors, which was a nice feature, but not really necessary as the size is pretty similar between these. You just added green coloring. But the user interface is obviously a little bit more annoying. And to change units, you could double tap the negative. Now with the X1, you can actually double tap to do a quick adjustment, which is a lot more natural, but you do lose the unit adjustment. Sound-wise, a little bit louder and lower tone with the X1, so it's less obnoxious. Here we have the Magicshine Airro, and you can see this is the other pump we've reviewed with the exposed motor. This one's a little bit sleeker. You actually have a side window that shows it off, and you can see a screen on the back side. The buttons on the Magicshine a little bit smaller, metal and plastic construction. And here you can see the motor. Has a different sound too, sounds like a duck. Especially when you do a quick on and off, but very similar. So it's possible they share some components. You can see they're roughly the same size. This one has a little bit more ventilation, but the Magicshine has a little bit more textured surfaces. And what I like about the Magicshine is you can change the units, which is nice. So if you hold both buttons, you can do bar or PSI. We also have some of the CYCPLUS pumps. We have the AS2 Pro. So you can see similar size, screen on the back side. This is all metal, so it definitely gets warmer. And then we have their Ultra, which you can see is even smaller. So a little bit shorter, one of the lightest ones on the market. But this gets really hot, especially after you use it on a full empty tire. So that is one downside. And you can see similar screens, small buttons, so these ones are a little bit bigger. But sound-wise, you can see similar. I wouldn't say anyone's better, but this one's a little bit lower tone, which is nicer. We also have the Magicshine, or the Topic here, the e-booster. You can see a larger one, and it has this little protrusion on top, which lets you select between Schrader and Presta with a single swipe rather than having an attachment like the COOSPO X1 to go to Schrader, which is a nice feature. But if you want to use the extension hose, it doesn't matter what you select here, so then you need the right adapter, which is a downside, and it adds a little bit of height. And then finally there's the Fanttik. You can see this one's much bigger, larger battery, but the nice thing is the sound is a lot quieter, and they have a reversible hose here. So rather than the hose with additional attachment for Presta and Schrader, you can actually just take this off and twist it around, which is a nice feature I would have liked to see here, just less moving parts and small parts that are easy to lose. Now let's go over the pros and cons for the COOSPO X1. What we like about it is very well ventilated with the plastic case and all the vent holes. It stays nice and cool, especially with multiple uses. You also have a nice large LED screen with a simple user interface. That's a big improvement over the other COOSPO pump. You also have fast inflation with a relatively large battery, so you can use it for multiple tire inflations. The main negatives with this pump is that it only displays PSI units. So if you're in another country that uses a different unit, you can't change it here. Also, it requires an extension hose for Schrader valves, which is a little bit unusual. It would have been nice if they had a small or reversible, smaller piece where you could go to Presta or Schrader without an extension. Taking everything into account would give the pump a 9.0 out of 10. It's a nice improved and upgraded electric pump, especially compared to the existing APB1. Thanks for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at thesweetcyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist reminding you to enjoy the ride.